The radio cracked to life at 3:17 a.m. Not a voice, just breathing. Slow. Wet. Close. I froze in the guard booth, my gloved hand hovering over the volume knob. The snow outside fell sideways, scraping against the glass like fingernails. The industrial yard beyond the fence was empty. Rows of silent warehouses buried under white, floodlights flickering like tired eyes. Control. I whispered. The breathing stopped. For a second, there was only the wind. Then a sound came through the radio that didn't belong to any man I'd ever known. A laugh, thin, broken like someone choking on ice. I yanked the radio cord free. The booth lights dimmed. Outside, something moved near Warehouse C. I leaned forward, squinting through frost-stained glass. The motion sensor light blinked on, revealing footprints forming in the snow. Not approaching. Standing still. As if whoever or whatever had been there was waiting. The radio, unplugged, crackled again. A whisper slid through the booth, soft as breath on skin. "You're late tonight." My phone buzzed with a notification from the security app. Motion detected. Warehouse C. Timestamp. 3:02 a.m. 15 minutes earlier. I stared at the footprints outside my booth. They hadn't been there before. And slowly, agonizingly, they turned toward the door. By the time I reached the guard booth, the cold had already worked its way into my bones. Winter nights had a way of doing that. Slipping past layers, past reason, until your thoughts slowed and your body felt like it belonged to the dark more than you did. The booth sat alone at the edge of the industrial complex, a glass box surrounded by chain-link fencing and snowdrifts that rose higher every week. Northvale Industrial Complex. No businesses. No workers. No reason for anyone to be there. That's what the company brochure said. I stamped my boots on the metal step before unlocking the door. The sound echoed too loudly in the empty yard. Floodlights buzzed overhead, casting pale cones of light that barely cut through the falling snow. Everything beyond them vanished into white. Inside, the booth smelled of stale coffee and old plastic. A space heater hummed beneath the desk, fighting a losing battle. I set my thermos down, logged my start time, and powered up the monitors. Camera feeds bloomed across the screens. Static at first, then clarity. Warehouse A. Warehouse B. Warehouse C. Perimeter fence. Main gate. All quiet. That was normal. Winter shifts were long stretches of nothing broken by routine patrols and system checks. Still, something felt off. Not wrong, just thin. Like the silence had weight, and it was leaning in. I shook the thought away and settled into the chair. Outside, the wind picked up. Snow tapped against the glass in uneven rhythms. I watched it collect in corners of the yard, smoothing the ground until it looked untouched, unreal. At 2:58 a.m., the radio crackled. I reached for it, expecting control's routine check-in. Nothing came through. Just static. I frowned and adjusted the dial. The static shifted, almost forming a pattern, then went quiet again. "Control," I said. No answer. I checked the signal indicator. Full bars. That didn't make sense. I leaned back, eyes drifting to the camera feeds again. Warehouse C's image stuttered, just for a second, then stabilized. I leaned forward. The loading bay door was closed. Same as always. But something about the shadows inside the bay made my chest tighten. They seemed deeper than they should have been, as if the light didn't want to go there. I checked the time. 3:02 a.m. That's when the motion alert should have sounded. It didn't. I opened the system logs, scrolling through entries with numb fingers. There it was. Motion detected. Warehouse C 2:59 a.m. Then another. 3:01 a.m. Then a third. 3:02 a.m. My heartbeat quickened. The system didn't log false positives. Not 3 in a row. Not without notifying the active guard. I glanced out the window. Snow covered the yard in smooth white sheets, broken only by tire tracks near the gate from the delivery truck earlier that night. No footprints. No movement. The radio crackled again. This time I didn't touch it. The sound wasn't static anymore. It was breathing. Slow. Uneven. Like someone struggling to draw air through frozen lungs. "Hello," I said before I could stop myself. The breathing paused. For a long moment I thought it might answer. Instead, something whispered my name. Not loud. Not threatening. Just close. I stood up so fast the chair skidded backward, slamming into the wall. The heater flickered. The booth lights dimmed, then steadied. "Control," I said again, louder now. "This is Northvale. Do you copy?" Silence. Outside, one of the floodlights buzzed and died, plunging half the yard into darkness. I grabbed my flashlight and jacket. Protocol said visual confirmation for unexplained motion alerts. I recited it in my head like a prayer, as if rules could keep something away. When I opened the booth door, the cold rushed in hard enough to steal my breath. The yard looked different now, smaller somehow. Closer. The darkness pressed in from all sides, swallowing the edges of the complex. That's when I saw them. Footprints. Fresh. Leading away from the booth. Straight toward Warehouse C. They were deep, as if whoever made them had been standing still for a long time before moving. No signs of struggle. No drag marks. Just calm, deliberate steps. I followed them, each crunch of snow echoing too loudly in the quiet. My flashlight beam shook slightly as it cut through the falling flakes. The warehouse grew larger with every step, its metal walls rising like a cliff face. Halfway there I stopped. Something about the footprints bothered me. I crouched, brushing snow away from one. The edges were sharp. Too sharp. As if the snow had frozen the moment the foot lifted. Behind me the wind died. Complete silence. Then a voice spoke. Low, tired, and right at my back. "They didn't tell you, did they?" I spun around, heart slamming against my ribs. No one was there. The footprints behind me were gone. Only smooth, untouched snow remained. Ahead, the loading door of Warehouse C creaked. Slowly. Opening. And from inside something cold and familiar drifted out. The smell of old smoke. And breath. The loading door stopped halfway open. It hung there, trembling slightly, as if the warehouse itself was breathing. I stood frozen in the snow, my flashlight beam locked on the dark gap beneath the door. The light didn't reach far inside. It felt swallowed, like the darkness had weight and depth. I told myself to close it. I told myself to walk away. Instead, I stepped forward. The cold followed me in. Inside Warehouse C, the air was dead and sharp, colder than outside. My breath fogged instantly, hanging too long before fading. The smell hit me next. Burnt metal, old smoke, and something underneath it. Human. The door groaned shut behind me. Not slammed. Closed. Deliberately. I turned. Hand on the handle. Locked. My radio crackled to life. Not static. Voices. Low. Overlapping. Too close together. "Didn't come back," he said. Relief was on the way. "So cold." "Stop," I whispered, pressing the radio to my chest. "Just stop." The voices faded, replaced by a single one. Older. Calm. Familiar. "Daniel." My stomach dropped. "Mark," I said. A pause. Then, softly, "You're inside now." The warehouse lights flickered overhead, rows of fluorescent tubes buzzing weakly before stabilizing. The shelves came into view. Tall, rusted, half-empty. Shadows pooled between them, thick and unmoving. "Where are you?" I asked. "Not where you are," Mark replied. "Not anymore." I moved deeper into the warehouse, boots echoing too loudly on concrete. Every sound felt amplified, like the building was listening. "They never should have put you here," Mark continued. "Winter sites are different." "Different how?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Things don't leave when they freeze," he said. "They wait." I reached the center aisle. That's when I saw the uniforms. Hanging from hooks along the wall. Security jackets. Old ones. Different company logos, faded and cracked. Some stiff with frost, others darkened with something that looked like soot. name patches stitched over the chest. I stepped closer. One of them read, M. Keller. My throat tightened. "Mark," I said slowly, "how long have you worked for this company?" The radio hissed. "Long enough to know when someone's about to disappear." The lights flickered again. This time, when they steadied, the warehouse wasn't empty. Figures stood between the shelves. Men. Security guards. Some leaned against metal racks. Others stood perfectly still, faces turned toward me. Their uniforms were wrong. Old styles, mismatched badges, boots dusted with frost. Their eyes were the worst part. Too dark. Too aware. One of them took a step forward. The sound of his boots scraping concrete made my stomach lurch. "Don't move," Mark said sharply. They noticed that. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What are they?" "Guards," he replied. "Same as you." One of the figures tilted his head, studying me. His lips parted and a breath spilled out, white, dense, unnatural. "Relief," the figure whispered. The word echoed, bouncing off the walls. Another voice joined it. "Shift change." Another. "Too cold." I backed away slowly, every instinct screaming. "They died here," Mark said. "During the fire evacuation. Power went out. Doors locked. Radios failed." A memory surfaced. Company training videos, brushed over incidents, a footnote about 3 on-site casualties. "They froze," Mark continued. "But the sight never let them go." The lights dimmed. The figures began to move. Not rushing. Drifting. Gliding between shelves like smoke given shape. One brushed past me. The cold was immediate. Searing, deep, burrowing into my skin. I gasped, stumbling back. The figure turned. Up close, his face was pale and cracked, skin drawn tight over bone. Frost clung to his eyelashes. "You took my hours," he said quietly. "I didn't know," I whispered. His mouth twisted. Not into a smile but something close. "No one ever does." The shelves groaned. Metal screamed. The warehouse stretched. Aisles lengthened, bending subtly, as if space itself were warping. The exit I'd come through was gone, replaced by more shelving, more shadows. "Run," Mark said. I ran. Footsteps echoed behind me, some heavy, some light, some dragging. Whispers chased me through the dark. "Don't leave us." "It's your turn." So tired. My flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed everything. I slammed into something solid. Metal bars, ice cold. Hands closed around my arms, gripping too tight. Their touch burned. I screamed, thrashing, but more hands joined. Dozens of them pulling, anchoring me in place. "Wait," one voice said close to my ear. "You hear that?" The warehouse fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then, a radio crackle. A booth heater humming. "Warmth. Hope. They always hear it," another voice murmured. "Right before it ends." The hands released me. I collapsed to the floor, gasping. The figures retreated, melting back into shadows. The lights flickered once more. And I was alone. My radio lay beside me, silent, except for one last transmission. Mark's voice, barely audible. "Daniel, if you make it out, don't take the shift." The warehouse door creaked open somewhere far away. Cold air rushed in. I staggered toward it, every step heavy, limbs numb. The exit appeared suddenly, as if the building had decided to allow it. I burst outside, collapsing into the snow. Behind me, Warehouse C stood silent. Dark, empty, no figures, no movement. I laughed weakly, breathless, half sobbing. "Just cold," I muttered. "Just the cold." Then I looked at my jacket. Frosty fingerprints marked the sleeves. Handprints, too many to count, and stitched into the lining, something that hadn't been there before. A faded name patch. D. Hargreaves. My radio crackled softly at my side. A whisper followed. Clock's still running. The snow outside had stopped, but the cold didn't leave me. It had seeped under my skin, into my lungs, into my bones. Every breath felt like ice grinding against my ribs. I stumbled back toward the guard booth, praying for warmth, for some semblance of normalcy. The yard was empty, or at least it looked empty. But the silence was heavy, unnatural. Too heavy. The booth door was ajar. That shouldn't have been possible. I didn't leave it open. My hands shook as I pushed it. Inside, the heater was still humming. The monitors flickered to life. And then I saw them. Warehouse C. Not empty. Figures. Dozens of them, standing shoulder to shoulder. Guards. My heart thudded as I recognized some uniforms from years past. Faded logos, worn badges. Some faces were gaunt, frostbitten. Others smooth but impossibly still, like wax figures. Their heads turned in unison, eyes locking on me. I swallowed hard. Mark. A laugh, low, broken, answered from the radio. Not Mark's voice. Too many voices layered under his. He's here, it whispered. Finally. The figures moved. Slow. Gliding. Not walking but shifting like smoke. Their boots made no sound, yet I could feel them approaching. I backed toward the booth. The door slammed shut behind me. No. I screamed. The heater sputtered, then died. Darkness enveloped me, thick and wet. I fumbled for my flashlight. Nothing. Dead. Voices filled the space, overlapping. I could feel them pressing against my skull. You took our shift. You never leave. Warmth, relief. A hand touched my shoulder. Ice. Burning ice. I spun. A face inches from mine, Mark, or something wearing Mark's face. His eyes were hollow black pits, a frost forming around the edges. Daniel, he said softly. It's your turn to stay. No. I'm leaving. The booth began to distort around me. Walls stretched, tilting. The monitors warped, flickering between reality and memory. I could see myself inside Warehouse C again, stumbling through shadows, the figures around me, reaching, whispering. Clock's still running, a voice said from nowhere and everywhere. I ran, but the floor beneath me tilted, each step longer, heavier. The booth no longer led outside. It was just another corridor, endless aisles of steel racks, stretching farther than reality allowed. I stumbled into a metal rack. My flashlight flickered on. Hundreds of faces. Former guards, lost employees, stared back. Hollow, frozen, mouths moving silently. Some reached out, beckoning. Some shook their heads in warning. A whisper at my ear. Don't leave. You can't leave. I fell to the concrete floor, gasping. Everything bent. My own reflection stared from a monitor. Pale, wide-eyed, sweating, shaking, covered in frost. But my reflection smiled. Not me. Something wearing me. I scrambled, hands bleeding on cold metal, trying doors that weren't there, windows that were just dark mirrors. Shadows pooled at every corner. Time fractured. Clocks spun backward, then forward. My own voice screamed from somewhere far away, calling me to stop, calling me to run. Then came the laughter. Thousands of voices layered together, mocking, coaxing. I could feel them behind the walls, inside the floor, inside me. I dropped to my knees. My mind fractured. Every step I'd taken in this shift, every motion alert, every shadow in the snow had led to this. They weren't just waiting outside, they'd been waiting for me all along. Join us, they whispered in unison. Forever. My flashlight flickered one last time. In its pale beam, I saw the final figure, a guard, my own uniform, frozen in mid-step, eyes dark, mouth twisted into a silent scream. And stitched across the chest of the jacket, my name. The radio crackled violently. Mark's voice, or what used to be him, echoed over static. Welcome. Daniel. You're late tonight. The figures closed in. Hands gripped my arms, my legs. Cold burned through me, deeper than frostbite, deeper than fear. I thrashed, screamed, tried to fight. But the warehouse had become alive, stretching, folding, swallowing. Time collapsed. Shadows devoured light. I felt my consciousness fray, Threads of myself pulled away with every whisper, every breath. The walls weren't walls. The floor wasn't floor. I was nowhere. And then light. The booth. The heater humming again. Snow outside. For a split second I thought I'd escaped. A single handprint appeared on the glass. Frosty. Small. My own. A whisper slid across the booth. You belong now. I screamed once, long and hollow. Then nothing. Outside, the yard was quiet. The snow smooth, untouched. The floodlights buzzed faintly, shadows frozen in place. Inside, the booth stood alone. Empty. But on the monitor, Warehouse C. Someone or something was already moving. And beneath it, a single name patch stitched across a frozen uniform. D. Hargreaves. I woke up in a hospital room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and white. The cold was gone. The snow had melted somewhere beyond the windows. I shivered anyway, the chill deep inside me, where it didn't belong. The nurse said I'd been found at the edge of the industrial complex. Half-conscious, frostbitten, mumbling about figures in warehouses. Hypothermia, she said. Exposure. Hallucinations induced by stress and exhaustion. I nodded. I let them believe it. It was easier that way. But I couldn't forget. Couldn't stop seeing them. The frozen figures, the hollow eyes, the frost forming on uniforms stitched with names that weren't mine. Until they were. When I tried to tell anyone the truth. Family, friends, doctors. They laughed politely. They said I'd been working long hours. Stress. Nothing more. Winter shifts are lonely, they said. Nothing to worry about. I knew better. Every night, I lie awake, replaying the corridors, the shadows, the whispers. Their voices drift into my dreams. Sometimes, I wake to the sound of my own breathing, slow and uneven, and wonder if someone or something is listening. Weeks later, I checked the security app by accident. I didn't have access anymore. Not allowed, not necessary. But curiosity. It's a trait that doesn't die so easily. There it was. Northvale Industrial Complex. Active. Assigned guard. D. Hargreaves. Shift start. Tonight. I dropped the phone. The cold swept over me, even in my apartment, even without snow. I could feel it pressing against my skin, freezing, suffocating. My breath caught in my throat. The memories weren't just memories. They were a warning. A map. A cycle. I tried to move past it, but everywhere I went, I saw signs. Frost patterns in the shape of handprints on windows. Shadows in alleys that shouldn't exist. Whispers from the vents, low and hesitant, calling my name. One night, I dreamed I returned to the booth. The monitors flickered to life. Warehouse C was full. Full of figures. Guards I didn't know, guards I remembered, guards I'd never met. And in the center of them, wearing my uniform, stitched across the chest. D. Hargreaves. I woke screaming. The next morning, the snow fell heavy. Silence pressed in over the streets. Even the wind was careful, quiet, listening. I left town. Changed my number. Stopped answering calls. But they know. Somehow they always know. Last night, my phone lit up. No caller ID. No message. Just a voicemail. I played it. Breathing. Slow. Cold. A whisper slid through the static, soft, deliberate. Your shift isn't over. I turned on every light in the apartment. The shadows didn't move. Not yet. But I could feel them. Waiting. Patient. Certain. And somewhere far away, or maybe just outside my door, Warehouse C waits too. For every winter there is someone. For every shift, someone new. For every guard, a replacement. I'll never forget. I'll never escape. Because when Northvale calls, it always gets you. And even now, as I write this, I feel the cold in my hands, the frost on my fingertips. The shift. It's still running. The snow is falling. And I hear it. Faint at first, then closer, relentless, breathing. Waiting. Whispering. You're late tonight.